The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through stars, planets, and the very fabric of space itself. But what happens when something arrives that operates on principles entirely divorced from the Force? Something born of pure human ingenuity, powered by technology so advanced it might as well be magic. The Clone Wars had seen countless battles, desperate struggles between the Galactic Republic and the Separatist Alliance, but no one, not the Jedi Council, not Count Dooku, not even the hidden architect of it all, anticipated the arrival of a man in a red and gold suit who would rewrite the rules of engagement. Tony Stark had been testing a theoretical dimensional gateway in his Malibu workshop when everything went catastrophically wrong. One moment he was calibrating quantum frequencies, the next his sensors screamed warnings as reality fractured around him. The Mark 50 armor sealed automatically as he tumbled through a kaleidoscope of impossible colors, Jarvis's voice cutting in and out through waves of spatial distortion. Then came the heat, the bone-shaking deceleration, and the sudden realization that he was no longer anywhere near Earth. The planet Christophosis sprawled beneath him, crystalline towers refracting light into prismatic displays that would have been beautiful if not for the smoke columns rising from a dozen impact sites. Tony's HUD struggled to process the scene. Massive, wedge-shaped ships exchanging luminous bolts of energy, smaller craft darting between them, and on the ground, ordered formations of white-armored soldiers trading fire with robots? His armor's power levels read stable, arc reactor humming with reassuring consistency, but nothing else made sense. "Jarvis, location analysis," Tony commanded, banking hard as something, a missile, energy weapon, screamed past his position. "Unknown, sir. Star patterns do not match any Earth constellation. Atmosphere is breathable, but composition suggests an entirely foreign stellar system. I'm detecting massive energy signatures consistent with nuclear-scale reactions, but the delivery systems are..." Another explosion, this one close enough that Tony felt the shockwave rattle his armor. Below, a squadron of the white-armored soldiers had taken cover behind crystalline structures, firing disciplined volleys at advancing mechanical warriors. The droids, because that's clearly what they were, marched forward with unsettling coordination, their weapons spitting red bolts that superheated crystal into molten slag. Tony's tactical instincts overrode his confusion. Whatever was happening here, those soldiers were about to be overrun. He dropped like a meteor, repulsors screaming to life as he leveled off 10 feet above the battlefield. The heads of a dozen droids swiveled toward him in perfect unison, their vocabulators crackling with mechanical confusion. Tony didn't give them time to adjust their targeting protocols. Repulsor beams lanced out from his palms, precisely calibrated bursts that punched through torso plating and sent droids crashing backward in sparking heaps. His shoulder-mounted micro-missiles deployed, acquiring targets with predatory efficiency. 6 contrails spiraled downward, each finding a droid commander unit Jarvis identified by their enhanced sensor arrays. The explosions were surgical, devastating. "Contact! Contact!" one of the white-armored soldiers shouted, his voice filtered through a helmet speaker. "Unknown friendly providing fire support." Tony landed in a crouch between the soldiers and the remaining droids, his armor's weight cratering the crystalline ground. Up close, he could see the soldiers more clearly, identical faces behind T-shaped visors, equipment that spoke to military discipline and uniformity. Clone soldiers, his mind supplied, though he had no idea where that certainty came from. "Stay behind me," Tony advised, raising both palms as the droids reorganized their assault. The remaining battle droids opened fire simultaneously, a concentrated barrage that would have shredded unprotected infantry. Tony's energy shields flared blue-white, absorbing the impacts while his targeting system marked each shooter. His response was immediate and overwhelming. Concentrated repulsor blasts that didn't just destroy the droids, but sent their components scattering across the battlefield like metallic confetti. Silence fell, broken only by the distant rumble of the larger battle and the soft whine of Tony's repulsors as he straightened. What are you?" one of the clone troopers asked, lowering his rifle but not holstering it. before Tony could answer, new contacts appeared on his HUD, two figures approaching with impossible speed, moving with a fluidity that defied physics. They wore robes, one with a small braid and mechanical hand, the other with longer hair and a more seasoned bearing. Both carried cylindrical objects at their belts that Tony's sensors couldn't quite classify. "Stand down," the older one commanded, his hand raised in a gesture that somehow carried weight beyond the mere physical. "We mean no harm." Tony's HUD flickered. For just a moment, his sensors registered something, an energy field that seemed to emanate from these two newcomers, something that made the arc reactor in his chest pulse with unusual resonance. "Obi-Wan," the younger one said, his eyes never leaving Tony's armor. "I've never seen technology like this. It's not Separatist design, not Republic either. The energy signature is completely foreign." The older man, Obi-Wan apparently, studied Tony with unsettling intensity. "Indeed, Anakin. Which raises the question, who are you, and why have you entered a Republic military operation?" Tony's mind raced, processing variables at superhuman speed. Different star patterns, unfamiliar technology, a war between factions he'd never heard of, and these two, radiating some kind of energy his sensors could barely detect. He dealt with gods, aliens, and alternate dimensions. This was just another Tuesday. Tony's faceplate retracted, revealing his signature smirk, though his eyes carried the sharp calculation of a man already planning 6 moves ahead. "Tony Stark, and trust me, gentlemen, I'm just as confused as you are. But if you want to talk, might I suggest we do it somewhere that's not actively exploding?"
The Jedi temple on Coruscant rose like a monument to an ancient faith, its spires reaching toward a sky choked with endless traffic streams. Tony stood in the council chamber, his armor retracted into compact form but still very much present, while 12 of the most powerful Force users in the galaxy studied him with varying degrees of curiosity, suspicion, and concern. The arc reactor glowed steady blue through his chest piece, a light that several council members kept glancing toward as if it offended their sensibilities. "Dimensional travel," Mace Windu said, his tone flat with skepticism. "You claim to have crossed between realities by accident." "Not claim, did," Tony corrected, pulling up a holographic display from his gauntlet. Jarvis had spent the hyperspace journey back to Coruscant analyzing every scrap of data, and the results were simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. My sensors detected a quantum tunnel collapse during transit. The energy signature matches theoretical models for interspatial bridging, except the power requirements should have been impossible without a cosmic-level energy source. Something pulled me through. Yoda's ears twitched, his ancient eyes narrowing. "The Force, perhaps. Drawn you here, it may have, for a purpose." Tony bit back his first 3 responses, all variations of "magic isn't real," because he'd fought alongside Thor and watched Wanda Maximoff rewrite reality with her hands. Whatever these people called the Force, it was clearly some form of measurable phenomenon, even if my sensors couldn't quite pin it down. The energy field he'd detected around Obi-Wan and Anakin permeated this entire temple, a background hum that made my arc reactor pulse in strange rhythms. "With respect," Tony said carefully, "I don't do destiny. Where I come from, we make our own choices. But I am stuck here until I can reverse engineer what happened, which means I need resources, lab space, and access to your scientific databases." "In exchange for what?" Ki-Adi-Mundi asked, his elongated head tilting slightly. "I took apart a dozen of your droid problem in about 30 seconds. Your clone troopers are brave, disciplined, well-trained, but they're using weapons technology that's maybe 50 years behind what I'm packing. Give me a week in a proper workshop, and I can upgrade your entire arsenal. Give me a month, and I can build countermeasures against Separatist shields that'll cut through them like tissue paper." "Arrogance," Mace Windu observed, though there was a hint of grudging respect in his voice. "You speak with great confidence for someone who knows nothing of this galaxy." It's not arrogance if I can back it up. Tony pulled up another hologram, this one showing detailed schematics Jarvis had compiled of the battle droids. Your enemy uses standardized programming across all units, centralized command networks, and predictable tactical algorithms. They're vulnerable to electronic warfare, targeted electromagnetic pulses, and about 40 other exploits I can name off the top of my head. You've been fighting them with brute force when you should be fighting them with intelligence. Anakin, standing to the side with Obi-Wan, leaned forward with obvious interest. You're talking about hacking their systems during combat? Among other things. Tony gestured, and the hologram shifted to show the arc reactor design. This is my power source. Clean, sustainable, capable of output levels that would make your ship reactors jealous. Scale it up, and you could power entire fleets. Scale it down, and you could give your infantry portable shields that would stop those blaster bolts, yes, Jarvis figured out what you call them, before they ever touch flesh. The council chamber fell silent. Tony could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. Military advantage versus security risk. Potential benefit versus unknown threat. These people had been fighting a war of attrition, and he'd just offered them a shortcut. But shortcuts had prices, and they knew it. Dangerous this technology could be, Yoda said slowly. In wrong hands, catastrophic consequences it would have. No argument there, Tony agreed. Back home, I learned that lesson the hard way, multiple times, which is why I don't just hand out weapons. I build them for people I trust under conditions I control. You want my help? Fine, but I maintain ownership of my designs, I supervise all implementations, and I don't build anything that makes me uncomfortable.
Mace Windu's expression hardened. The Republic military doesn't negotiate terms with civilians. Then the Republic military can keep losing soldiers while I build a ship and get the hell out of your war. Tony's voice carried steel beneath the casual delivery. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't choose your fight, but I saw those clones on Christophsis, good men holding the line against overwhelming odds, and I know what it's like to watch people die because they didn't have the right tools. So I'm making you an offer. Let me help, on my terms, or I walk. Obi-Wan stepped forward, his diplomat's instincts clearly engaged. Master Windu, perhaps we could approach this differently. Mr. Stark has knowledge we need, both about his own technology and potentially about how he arrived here. Rather than viewing him as a military asset to be controlled, perhaps we should consider him a consultant, someone who works with us rather than for us. A mercenary, you mean? Shak Ti observed. An independent contractor, Tony corrected. And I don't work for credits. I assume that's your currency. Jarvis picked up the term from your communications. I work for access, information, and the freedom to pursue my own research. Help me get home, and in the meantime, I help you not lose this war. Everybody wins. The council members exchanged glances, some communicating through subtle gestures that suggested telepathy or some other form of silent coordination. Tony's fingers twitched with the urge to scan for the mechanism, but he forced himself to stay still. First rule of negotiation, don't piss off the people you're trying to work with. Finally, Yoda spoke. Agreed to this proposal, the Council does, but conditions we have as well. Under Jedi supervision, you will work. Restricted, your access to certain technologies will be. And report to General Skywalker and General Kenobi you shall. Guide you, they will, in understanding our ways. Tony glanced at Anakin, who offered a slight smile that suggested this was going to be either very interesting or very complicated. Probably both. Deal, Tony said, extending his hand. When none of the council members moved to shake it, he rolled his eyes and retracted the gesture. Right, different customs. Jarvis, note, handshakes not universal. Noted, sir. Jarvis replied through the armor's speakers, causing several Jedi to start at the sound. As the council dismissed him, Tony followed Obi-Wan and Anakin out of the chamber, his mind already racing with possibilities. He'd bought himself time, resources, and most importantly, leverage. Now he just had to figure out how to navigate a galactic war, decode whatever the Force actually was, and build a way home, all while dealing with warrior monks who probably thought his ego was a character flaw rather than a survival mechanism. Behind them, Mace Windu's voice echoed softly. "I sense great disruption ahead. This man's arrival is no accident." Yoda's ears drooped thoughtfully. "Agree, I do. Question is, help us will this disruption, or destroy us?"
The Republic Research Facility on Coruscant's industrial level hummed with activity as Tony commandeered an entire wing for his workshop. Clone engineers watched with a mixture of fascination and bewilderment as he tore through their equipment catalog, requisitioning fabricators, holographic projectors, and enough raw materials to build a small fleet. Anakin leaned against a workbench, arms crossed, while Obi-Wan paced near the entrance with the patient resignation of a man babysitting a particularly brilliant and unpredictable explosive. "You know," Anakin said, watching Tony simultaneously weld a component while running calculations on 3 separate holographic displays, "most people would take at least a day to settle in before starting a complete overhaul of Republic military technology." "Most people aren't me," Tony replied without looking up. The arc reactor in his chest pulsed brighter as he channeled power through a modified welding torch. Republic technology, but enhanced with principles Jarvis had extrapolated from the armor systems. "Jarvis, run another simulation on the shield harmonics." "Simulation complete, sir," the AI responded, projecting results that made even Anakin straightened with interest. The modified energy matrix increases deflection efficiency by 43% while reducing power consumption by 18%. However, I must note that the Kyber crystal resonance patterns are unusual. Tony paused, setting down his tools. Unusual how? The crystals appeared to respond to focused intention, sir. When handled with concentrated purpose, the energy output stabilized. When handled casually, output became erratic. It's not scientifically consistent with standard piezoelectric behavior. "Great," Tony muttered. "I'm working with technology that has feelings. What's next? My repulsors develop separation anxiety?" Obi-Wan smiled faintly. "The Force flows through all things, Mr. Stark. Kyber crystals are particularly attuned to it. They're what power our lightsabers. They require attunement, a connection between wielder and crystal." Tony turned, genuine curiosity overriding his skepticism. "You're telling me your weapons are biometrically locked through some kind of quantum entanglement between user and power source?" "In simpler terms, yes." Obi-Wan unclipped his lightsaber, igniting it with a snap hiss that sent a brilliant blue blade humming into existence. The sound was distinctive, a thrum that Tony's sensors registered as a contained plasma field held in perfect magnetic suspension. "The Kyber crystal resonates with the Force within us. No 2 lightsabers are exactly alike, because no 2 Jedi are exactly alike." Tony's eyes lit up with the particular gleam that usually preceded either a breakthrough or a spectacular explosion. "Jarvis, full spectrum analysis. I want to know everything about that energy signature." The lightsaber's hum seemed to intensify as Jarvis's sensors swept over it, and Obi-Wan's expression shifted to mild alarm. "Mr. Stark, I'm not certain—" "Fascinating," Tony interrupted, studying the data streaming across his HUD. "You're right, it's not just technology. There's a secondary energy field interwoven with the plasma containment, something my sensors keep categorizing as biological, even though that makes no sense. It's almost like it's alive." "The Force is life itself," Obi-Wan said quietly, deactivating the blade. "It binds the galaxy together. Some can feel it, channel it, use it to accomplish incredible feats. But it's not a tool, Mr. Stark. It's more fundamental than that." Tony opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He'd seen Thor summon lightning with a thought, watched Wanda Maximoff reshape probability itself. Who was he to say that an energy field connecting all living things was impossible? His entire presence here violated about 17 laws of physics he'd previously considered immutable. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll accept that your space magic is real, but that doesn't change my job. Your clones are still dying out there because they're outgunned, outmaneuvered, and fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. These shield modifications," he gestured to his workbench, "will save lives, force or no force." Anakin pushed off the bench, moving closer to examine Tony's work. His flesh hand traced the circuitry with surprising technical knowledge. "You're routing power through a feedback loop here. That's actually brilliant. It would let the shields reinforce sections under concentrated fire." "Finally, someone who speaks engineer," Tony said with approval. "Your friend here is all mysticism and philosophy. You actually understand hardware." "I built a protocol droid when I was 9, Anakin replied with a slight smile. "And my Padawan learner says I have an unnatural obsession with improving ship systems." "Kid's got good instincts." Tony pulled up another schematic. "Speaking of ships, your starfighter designs are decent, but they're wasting energy on redundant systems. Streamline the power distribution, upgrade the targeting computers with predictive algorithms, and you could cut mission casualties by 20% minimum." Obi-Wan cleared his throat. "As much as I appreciate your enthusiasm, Mr. Stark, the Council asked me to ensure you understand the broader situation. This war isn't simply about technology, it's about ideology, about the Republic's survival against those who would see it torn apart." "Count Dooku and his separatist buddies," Tony said, pulling up holographic intelligence reports Jarvis had compiled from Republic databases. "Former Jedi turned political revolutionary, backed by corporate interests and a droid army. Claims the Republic is corrupt and needs to be rebuilt. Typical revolutionary rhetoric, except..." He paused, studying Dooku's image. "Except your reports say he's a Force user, powerful one. And there's something else, isn't there? Something you're not telling me." The two Jedi exchanged a glance that confirmed Tony's suspicions. "The Sith," Anakin said quietly. "They're behind the Separatists, ancient enemies of the Jedi, users of the dark side of the Force. We thought they were extinct, but 10 years ago we learned otherwise. Dooku is one of them." Tony processed that information with characteristic speed. "So, this isn't just a civil war. It's a shadow war between two groups of Force users with regular people caught in the crossfire. And let me guess, you suspect there's a puppet master pulling Dooku's strings, but you don't know who." Obi-Wan's silence was answer enough. "Wonderful," Tony muttered. "I've landed myself in the middle of a galaxy-spanning conspiracy with actual space wizards. Jarvis, update threat assessment protocols. Add mysterious dark side mastermind to the list of things that want to kill us." "Added, sir, though I should note the list is becoming quite extensive." Before Tony could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A holographic projection flickered to life, showing a clone officer with distinctive markings on his armor. "General Skywalker, General Kenobi, urgent transmission from Kamino. The facility is under Separatist attack. Fleet-scale assault. They're requesting immediate reinforcement." Anakin's entire demeanor shifted. Casual curiosity replaced with razor-sharp focus. "Kamino is where we create the clones. If the Separatists destroy those facilities, you lose your ability to replenish your army," Tony finished, his tactical mind already running scenarios. "Which means this war goes from difficult to impossible pretty much overnight. How fast can you get there?" "Not fast enough," Obi-Wan said grimly. "Even at maximum hyperspace speed, it would take hours. By then it might be too late," Tony interrupted, his armor already beginning to assemble around him in flowing nanite streams. "Jarvis, prep my new modifications. Time to field test them in actual combat." "Sir, the armor systems haven't been fully integrated with the enhanced power matrix." "Then we'll find out what breaks in real time. It's called iterative design." Tony's faceplate sealed, his HUD flickering to life with targeting solutions and power readouts. "Gentlemen,
I hope your ship is fast because we've got clones to save and separatists to wreck." Anakin grinned, the expression carrying a reckless edge that Tony recognized immediately. The look of someone who lived for moments like this. "I like him." "Of course you do," Obi-Wan sighed. "You're both going to be the death of me." Kamino's perpetual storms raged across endless oceans, lightning splitting purple-black clouds while torrential rain hammered the stilted cities rising from turbulent waters. The Republic assault ship dropped from hyperspace into immediate chaos. Separatist frigates hammered the cloning facilities with turbo-laser fire, while droid starfighters swarmed like metallic locusts. Through the viewport, Tony watched clone defensive positions crumble under concentrated bombardment, their anti-air batteries overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "They're targeting the genetic repositories," Obi-Wan said, studying tactical displays with grim intensity. "If those are destroyed, the Republic loses its ability to create new clone batches. This isn't just an attack, it's an extinction attempt." Tony's HUD painted the battlefield in layers of data. Energy signatures, trajectory predictions, structural weak points. The Separatist fleet had committed serious firepower. 3 frigates, 2 destroyer escorts, and enough droid fighters to blot out Kamino's pale sun. The Republic forces were outgunned 3-1, and reinforcements were still hours away. "Jarvis, full combat analysis. I want firing solutions, shield frequencies, and command ship identification." "Scanning, sir. The central frigate is broadcasting command protocols to all droid units. Eliminate it, and you'll disrupt their coordination significantly. However, the vessel's shields are rated to withstand sustained capital ship bombardment." Rated for ships, but not for me. Tony felt the familiar pre-combat rush, adrenaline sharpening every thought to crystal clarity. "Anakin, I need you to get me close. Your fighters can handle atmospheric combat, right?" Anakin was already moving toward the hangar, Obi-Wan following with considerably less enthusiasm. "My interceptor can handle anything. The question is whether you can keep up." Tony's laugh crackled through the comms. "Kid, I fought aliens over New York in this suit. Your ships are impressive, but I wrote the book on aerial combat." Minutes later, Tony launched from the hangar into Kamino's maelstrom. Rain hammered his armor with enough force to stagger a normal person, but repulsors compensated automatically, stabilizing his flight path. Anakin's Jedi interceptor screamed past, its distinctive wedge shape cutting through the storm like a blade. Behind them, a squadron of clone pilots formed up in V-wing fighters, their disciplined formation a stark contrast to the chaos below. "All wings, this is General Skywalker. Our objective is the command frigate. Stark, you're with me on the attack run. Obi-Wan, coordinate defensive support for the clone facilities." "Why do I always get the defensive assignments?" Obi-Wan's voice carried long-suffering patience. "Anakin, try not to destroy everything before I arrive." Tony accelerated, repulsors pushing him to speeds that made the clone's fighters fall behind. Droid starfighters detected his approach, peeling off from their bombing runs to intercept. Their tactics were predictable, textbook pincer movements and overlapping firing zones. Against a conventional target, it would have been effective. Tony wasn't conventional. He rolled through a cluster of vulture droids, repulsor beams lancing out in precisely timed bursts. Each shot found critical systems, power cores, gyro stabilizers, sensor arrays. Droids tumbled from the sky, trailing smoke and sparks, their targeting computers unable to track his erratic flight path. Jarvis fed him trajectory data faster than the droids could process, turning combat into a mathematical equation he solved with overwhelming force. "Impressive flying," Anakin said, his interceptor dancing through defensive fire with impossible grace. Tony's sensor showed Anakin performing maneuvers that should have torn his ship apart. High G turns, last-second rolls, and attack runs that defied tactical logic, yet somehow worked perfectly. But watch this. Anakin's ship dove straight toward a frigate's bridge, weapons blazing. Turbo-laser batteries swiveled to track him, filling the space with crisscrossing death. At the last possible moment, Anakin pulled up, and Tony watched in disbelief as the frigate's own weapons fire struck its sister ship, punching through shields weakened by the misdirected barrage. "That's..." Tony started. "The Force," Anakin finished, banking hard. "I can feel their targeting solutions before they fire. Makes dodging a lot easier." Tony filed that information away for later analysis and focused on the command frigate. Its shield shimmered blue-white, absorbing Republic fire without visible strain. Standard weapons wouldn't cut it, but Tony had stopped using standard weapons years ago. Jarvis, route all available power to repulsors. I want maximum penetration on a focused beam. Sir, that will drain our reserves to critical levels. You'll have perhaps 30 seconds of flight time remaining afterwards. Then I'll make them count. Tony angled toward the frigate shield perimeter, calculating angles with split-second precision. The arc reactor in his chest burned brighter, power surging through his armor systems like liquid lightning. His HUD flashed warnings that he ignored. This was about commitment, about hitting hard enough that the target had no time to adapt. He punched through the shields at full speed, the energy barrier parting like water around his concentrated repulsor field. Alarms screamed across the frigate's bridge as Tony emerged inside their defensive perimeter, point-blank range to their hull. His targeting system identified the ship's primary reactor, buried deep, shielded by meters of durasteel, theoretically invulnerable. Theory met practice. Tony planted both palms against the hull and unleashed everything. The focused repulsor beam carved through armor plating like a plasma torch through paper, boring deeper with each microsecond. Metal superheated, liquefied, vaporized. His armor's power reserves plummeted. 70%, 50, 30. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not until the reactor breached. Tony kicked away from the hull as internal explosions rippled through the frigate's structure. Secondary detonations changed through weapons batteries, power conduits, and fuel reserves. The entire ship seemed to shudder, its superstructure fracturing along stress points never meant to fail simultaneously. "Get clear!" Anakin's voice cut through comms. "That thing's going to..." The command frigate exploded in a sphere of white-hot plasma that lit Camino's storms like a miniature sun. The shockwave caught Tony mid-flight, tumbling him end over end as his depleted repulsor struggled to stabilize. His HUD showed power levels at 8%, barely enough for controlled descent and falling fast. "Jarvis, I need options." "Gliding to the nearest platform, sir. I'd suggest bracing for impact." Tony angled toward a clone facility's landing platform, repulsors firing in stuttering bursts to slow his descent. He hit hard, armor scraping across durasteel in a shower of sparks before finally skidding to a stop. Around him, the battlefield had transformed. Without command coordination, droid fighters flew in confused patterns, colliding with each other or simply hovering in place. The remaining Separatist ships, recognizing their disadvantage, began emergency jumps to hyperspace. Clone troopers rushed toward Tony's position, weapons ready but not aimed. Their armor bore scorch marks and battle damage, but they moved with unshaken discipline. "Identify yourself," the lead trooper commanded, his rifle steady. Tony's faceplate retracted, revealing a face streaked with sweat and wearing a triumphant grin. "Tony Stark, I'm with the Jedi, and I just saved your genetic future, so maybe hold off on the shooting?" Anakin's interceptor touched down nearby, the young Jedi leaping out with characteristic energy. He's telling the truth. That was either the bravest or most reckless thing I've ever seen. Why not both? Tony pushed himself upright, armor system slowly cycling back online as the arc reactor recharged. Through the rain, he could see the damage. Clone facilities smoking, but intact, Separatist forces in full retreat, and hundreds of soldiers who would live to fight another day because someone had been willing to take an insane risk. Obi-Wan's voice crackled through comms. "Anakin, status report. Separatist fleet destroyed or retreating, facilities secured." And Tony just proved that sometimes the best strategy is overwhelming firepower applied with extreme prejudice. "Wonderful," Obi-Wan said dryly. "The two of you are going to give me gray hair." Tony looked at the clones gathering around him, their identical faces showing identical relief. These men were bred for war, created to fight and die for a republic that viewed them as equipment rather than people. Back home, he'd built weapons that killed. Here, he'd used his weapons to save lives. The distinction mattered.
Jarvis, start a new project file. Codename Clone Survival Initiative. I want designs for personal shields, enhanced armor, medical tech, everything we can build to keep these guys alive. Certainly. May I ask what prompted this? Tony watched a clone medic tending to his wounded brothers, his movements gentle despite the identical hands that could kill with equal efficiency. Just seems like the right thing to do.
The shadow moon of Umbara hung like a bruise against the void, its perpetual twilight broken only by bioluminescent flora and the flash of weapons fire. Tony had thought Kamino was hell. He'd been wrong. Umbara was where wars went to become nightmares. The Republic's 501st Legion, led by Anakin, had been bogged down for 3 weeks in a grinding campaign against Umbaran militia forces who knew every meter of their toxic, fog-shrouded homeworld. Clone casualties mounted daily, bodies stacking up in field hospitals that smelled of Bacta and desperation. Tony stood in the command bunker carved from Umbaran rock, studying holographic battle maps that painted a picture of strategic stalemate. His armor bore scorch marks from a week of continuous combat. Umbaran weapons used technology even he had to respect. Plasma rifles that punched through standard clone armor like it was tissue paper. He'd upgraded what he could, but there were limits to what one man could accomplish when the enemy had home field advantage and generations of military innovation. The capital city is 10 kilometers ahead, General Pongkrez said, his forearms gesturing across the tactical display. The Basilisk Jedi had arrived to take command after Anakin was recalled to Coruscant, and something about him made Tony's instincts scream warnings his rational mind couldn't quite articulate. We push through their defenses, take the city, and end this campaign. Acceptable casualties are estimated at 60%. 60%? Tony's voice carried dangerous edge. You're talking about sending these men into a meat grinder. These men are soldiers, Krell said dismissively. They were created to fight and die for the Republic. Their sacrifice is necessary. Tony felt the arc reactor pulse harder in his chest, anger heating his blood. Around the bunker, clone officers stood in rigid attention, their body language screaming silent disagreement they'd never voice aloud. These men, Rex, Fives, Jesse, Hardcase, and dozens more, had become something close to friends over the past few weeks. He'd fought beside them, pulled wounded from the field, listened to their stories around campfires while they discussed hopes for a life after the war. They weren't equipment. They weren't disposable. There's another way, Tony said, pulling up his own tactical analysis. Umbaran defenses are concentrated around conventional approach vectors, but their sensor network has blind spots here, here, and here, gaps in coverage created by the planet's magnetic interference. We send in infiltration teams, disable their shield generators, then hit them with precision orbital strikes. Minimal clone casualties, maximum effectiveness. Krell's eyes narrowed. Your plan would take days to coordinate, days we don't have. The Separatist fleet will arrive to reinforce the Umbarans within 72 hours. We attack at dawn with full force, or we risk losing this entire sector. Then we risk it, Tony shot back, because I'm not signing off on a suicide charge that throws away hundreds of lives for a symbolic victory. You forget your place, Stark. You are not a general. You are a consultant, a mechanic who builds toys. Strategic decisions are made by those who understand the necessities of war. Tony's faceplate snapped shut, HUD activating with tactical overlays. Jarvis, run probability analysis on Krell's assault plan. Numbers cascaded across his vision, and what they showed made his stomach turn. Your necessary assault has a 78% casualty rate. And you know what's really interesting? The tactical value of taking that city is almost negligible. The Separatists can withdraw, regroup, and hit us from another vector. You're not trying to win, you're trying to kill clones. The bunker fell silent. Clone officers exchanged glances, hands drifting subtly toward weapons. Krell's forearms tensed, and for a moment Tony thought the Jedi might attack. Then Obi-Wan's voice crackled through the comm system, a lifeline of sanity. General Krell, the Council has reviewed Mr. Stark's tactical recommendations. We're ordering a 48-hour pause to implement his infiltration strategy. Stand down the assault.
Krell's face twisted with barely suppressed rage. The Council grows soft. This war will not be won through caution. He stormed from the bunker, leaving behind an atmosphere thick with tension. Captain Rex approached Tony, removing his helmet to reveal a face lined with exhaustion and something that might have been gratitude. "Sir, what you just did now?" "Don't," Tony interrupted, his faceplate retracting. "Don't thank me for treating you like a human being. That should be the baseline, not the exception." He pulled up his infiltration plans, highlighting entry vectors and strike coordinates. "Get your best men together. We're going to show Krell and anyone else watching that there's a better way to fight this war." 40 hours later, Tony crouched in Umbaran undergrowth that glowed with sickly phosphorescence, his armor's stealth systems masking his energy signature from patrol sensors. Beside him, Rex and Fives moved with the silent precision of elite soldiers, their customized armor bearing modifications Tony had personally installed. Ahead, an Umbaran shield generator hummed with power, its surface crawling with defensive turrets and guard patrols. "Jarvis, defense analysis. Automated targeting system, sir. Biometric scanners and what appears to be a secondary power source in case of primary failure. The Umbarans are quite thorough. Then we'll be more thorough." Tony activated a device he had spent the last 2 days building, a jammer that broadcast false biometric data, making his team's signatures appear as local wildlife. The technology was delicate, prone to overheating and maybe a 15-minute operational window, but 15 minutes was all they needed. They moved like ghosts through Umbaran defenses. Tony's sensors painted safe paths through sensor nets, while the clones' training kept them invisible to organic patrols. When they reached the generator's core, Tony planted shape charges with the precision of a surgeon, each explosive positioned to create a cascading failure that would overload the entire network. "Charge is set," Fives whispered. 30 seconds to detonation. They withdrew to minimum safe distance, and Tony watched through his HUD as the countdown reached 0. The explosion was beautiful in its efficiency. Not the massive fireball of conventional demolition, but a surgical strike that sent the generator's core into critical overload. Secondary explosions rippled outward, taking down shield emitters in a chain reaction that left a 5-kilometer gap in Umbaran defenses. "All teams, this is Stark. Package delivered. Air support, you're clear for orbital strikes." Above Umbara's atmosphere, Republic artillery ships opened fire with devastating precision. Without shields, Umbaran defensive positions evaporated under concentrated bombardment. Tony watched through tactical feeds as clone ground forces advanced through the breach, meeting minimal resistance from an enemy whose entire defensive strategy had just been dismantled. The battle for Umbara's capital lasted 6 hours, not 6 days. Clone casualties, 43 wounded, 5 killed. Acceptable losses in war's brutal mathematics, but each one still twisted something in Tony's chest. He'd known soldiers before, Rhodes, the Air Force pilots he'd worked with, but this was different. These men had no choice in their service, no life outside the war, no future promised beyond the next battlefield. In the captured capital, Tony found General Krell standing amid Umbaran prisoners, his lightsabers ignited and his expression promising violence. The clones had surrounded him, weapons raised, and the air crackled with tension that spoke of something terrible barely contained. "Stand down, General," Rex said, his voice carrying steel Tony had never heard before. "We know what you are. The Council transmitted evidence. You've been sabotaging Republic operations, feeding intelligence to the Separatists. You're a traitor." Krell laughed, the sound bitter and vicious. "Traitor. I'm the only one who sees clearly. The Republic is dying. The Jedi Order is a relic, and you clones are nothing but meat droids pretending to be soldiers. I chose the winning side, the side that will rule when this war ends." Tony's repulsors powered up with a whine that cut through the confrontation. "Here's the thing about winning sides, General. They're only winning until someone smarter comes along and changes the game." Krell turned, his forearms spreading in combat stance. "You think your technology makes you powerful, Stark? I am a master of the Force. I have fought in hundreds of battles. You are nothing." "Maybe, but I'm the nothing who's about to end your career." Krell moved with the enhanced speed of Force augmentation, closing 20 meters in seconds that would have been impossible for normal beings.
His lightsabers carved through air with lethal grace, seeking gaps in Tony's armor with surgical precision. Tony met him with repulsor fire, calculated bursts that forced Krell to constantly deflect rather than press his attack. They fought through the ruins of Umbaran architecture, a clash between ancient warrior tradition and cutting-edge technology. Krell was powerful, skilled, and utterly confident in his superiority, but Tony had fought gods, and he'd learned that confidence was just another exploitable weakness. Jarvis, analyze his combat patterns. Find the rhythm. Pattern identified, sir. He favors his upper right arm for primary strikes, uses the lower left for defensive maneuvers. There's a 0.3-second lag between defense and counterattack. 0.3 seconds. Barely perceptible, but enough. Tony feinted left, drawing Krell's defensive response, then pivoted and fired a concentrated repulsor beam during that minuscule gap. The blast caught Krell in the center mass, not enough to penetrate Jedi durability, but enough to send him crashing through a wall in a shower of rubble. The clones moved in immediately, stun weapons ready. Krell tried to rise, but Rex planted a boot on his chest, blaster aimed between his eyes. For the brothers you got killed, this is for them. Later, in the aftermath, Tony stood on a landing platform watching Republic transports evacuate wounded. Obi-Wan had arrived to oversee Krell's arrest, and the older Jedi approached with the weariness of a man who'd seen too many ideals crumble. You did well, Mr. Stark. Better than we had any right to expect from someone not of this galaxy. I didn't do it for the Republic. I did it because those men deserved someone who saw them more than weapons. The Council has noticed. Your contributions have been significant, but there are concerns. Your presence here, your technology, your methods, they disrupt the natural order. Some believe you're a threat to galactic stability. Tony turned, his reflection ghosting across his armor's polished surface. Good, because your natural order grinds people into dust and calls it necessary. If I'm disrupting that, then I'm doing something right. Obi-Wan studied him with eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. You remind me of Anakin, the same certainty, the same refusal to accept limitations. I wonder if you'll learn the same lessons he must face, that some battles can't be won through force alone. Maybe, but until I learn that lesson, I'm going to keep fighting like I can win, because the alternative is accepting that good men die for nothing, and I'm not ready to believe that yet. As Republic ships lifted off from Umbara's shadowed surface, Tony's sensors detected something his conscious mind hadn't yet processed. A faint energy signature, familiar and wrong, coming from somewhere deep in the capital. The same signature he'd felt around Krell, around Dooku in the intelligence files, around every dark corner of this war. Someone was watching, someone with power that made his arc reactor pulse in warning rhythms. The war was far from over, and Tony Stark had just made himself very interesting to forces that operated in shadows deeper than Umbara's eternal twilight.
The Clone Wars raged on, but something fundamental had shifted in the balance. Tony Stark, genius, billionaire, and reluctant hero, had carved his name into galactic history, not through conquest or political maneuvering, but through a simple revolutionary act. He had refused to accept unnecessary death as the price of victory. In the months following Umbara, his technology proliferated through the public forces. Personal shields became standard issue for clone troopers, cutting casualty rates by 40% across active theaters. His modifications to starfighter systems gave Republic pilots advantages that turned losing battles into stalemates, stalemates into victories. But more importantly, his presence had forced the Jedi Council and Republic military to confront an uncomfortable truth, that they had been treating their clone soldiers as expendable resources rather than living beings worthy of protection. The Senate debated his influence. Some called him a dangerous variable, an outsider whose technology threatened established military doctrine. Others saw him as exactly what the Republic needed,
a fresh perspective unbound by tradition or political calculation. Chancellor Palpatine, in particular, seemed interested in Tony's work, extending invitations to Coruscant that Tony politely declined, while Jarvis flagged the Chancellor's energy signature as concerning. Darth Dooku had also taken notice. Separatist intelligence networks buzzed with orders to capture Stark alive, to acquire his technology, to eliminate him if capture proved impossible. The Arc reactor had become the most coveted prize in the galaxy, a power source that could shift the balance of the entire war. But Tony's greatest impact wasn't measured in technology or tactical victories. It was measured in the thousands of clone troopers who survived battles they should have died in, who started to believe that maybe their lives had value beyond their utility as soldiers. Rex, Fives, Jesse, and countless others began to question orders that seemed designed to waste their lives. They started thinking like individuals rather than programmed units. The Jedi Order remained divided on what Tony represented. Some, like Anakin and Ahsoka, embraced him as an ally who understood that preserving life was as important as defeating the enemy. Others, like Mace Windu, saw him as a disruptive element whose very existence challenged the Force's will. Obi-Wan, ever the diplomat, simply observed that Tony Stark was exactly what he claimed to be, a man trying to do the right thing with the tools available to him. As for Tony himself, he continued his research into returning home. Jarvis had mapped the quantum signature of his arrival, identified the dimensional frequency that might reopen the gateway, but the power requirements were staggering. Even with the Arc reactor, even with access to Republic technology, creating a stable wormhole would require energy on a scale that might take years to accumulate. Which meant he was stuck in a galaxy far from home, fighting a war he hadn't chosen, alongside people who had become something more than allies. The clones had taught him that courage wasn't about powers or abilities. It was about standing up when everything demanded you stayed down. The Jedi had shown him that there were forces in the universe beyond technology, beyond understanding, that demanded respect even from the most rational mind. And the war itself had reminded him of a lesson he'd learned in a cave in Afghanistan, wielding a hammer against impossible odds. That one person, in the right place, with the right conviction, could change the trajectory of history. In the shadows, Darth Sidious watched this disruption with growing concern. Tony Stark was an anomaly, an element his carefully orchestrated plans hadn't accounted for. The man's technology could accelerate the war's conclusion before Order 66 could be properly executed. His influence over the clones might compromise their programming. Most troubling, his very presence seemed to resonate strangely with the Force, not as a user, but as something the Force itself seemed uncertain how to categorize.
Plans would need to be adjusted, contingencies activated. The grand plan had survived setbacks before and would survive this one. But for the first time in decades, Darth Sidious felt something he'd thought long buried beneath layers of dark side mastery, genuine uncertainty. On Coruscant, in a workshop that hummed with the fusion of two galaxies' greatest technologies, Tony Stark worked late into the night. His armor stood in the corner, ready for deployment at a moment's notice. His arc reactor glowed steady and strong, a small sun brought from another universe to light the way forward. Jarvis's voice broke the silence. "Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Rex. The 501st has encountered heavy resistance on Ryloth. They're requesting your assistance." Tony didn't hesitate. "Tell them I'm en route. And Jarvis, update the project files. Add a new priority objective.
Make sure every single clone who wants to survive this war gets the tools to do it." "Certainly, sir, though I should note that such an objective may significantly extend our stay in this galaxy." Tony smiled, the expression carrying equal parts weariness and determination. He'd come to this galaxy by accident, then dropped into a war he didn't understand, and found himself caring about people he'd never expected to meet. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the universe or the Force or whatever cosmic entity had dragged him here knew that sometimes the most important battles weren't the ones you chose, but the ones that chose you. The armor flowed over him in waves of red and gold nanotech, sealing him in technology that represented the absolute pinnacle of human achievement. But as he launched from the workshop into Coruscant's eternal traffic streams, racing toward another battle in a war that seemed to have no end, Tony Stark carried something more valuable than repulsors or arc reactors. He carried hope that even in the darkest times, even in a galaxy tearing itself apart, one person's refusal to accept unnecessary death could light a spark that might one day become a flame. The Clone Wars would rage on, but they would do so knowing that somewhere in the chaos, a man in iron armor was fighting not for territory or ideology, but for the simple principle that every life, clone or otherwise, mattered. And in a galaxy far, far away, that made all the difference.